Hello, management scholars. Dr. T checking in with our Chapter 3 Spotlight. As you can tell from the title, Chapter 3, the manager's changing work environment and ethical responsibilities. And here's the part, to focus in on the most. Doing the right thing. Doing the right thing. You may recall from the class overview or the intro video that I posted, one of the three drum beats that I try to weave throughout all my classes, regardless of the topic of the class, is ethics. And from a leadership perspective, from a management perspective, I told you I had this image of leaders and managers being thermostats, not thermometers. So when it comes to behaving ethically, carrying yourself in an ethical manner, doing the right thing on the job. If you're a leader or a manager and you behave unethically or you do things that are suspect, you pretty much just give everyone in your organization free license to do the same thing. Because, hey, well, if so-and-so is doing it, my leader's doing it, why can't I do it? So I really want to hammer this home. And so Chapter 3 covers something called the triple bottom line. It covers something called CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. And it also covers ethics and values. So we'll just dip our toe in it. That's the purpose of these spotlight videos. We'll start by talking about this thing known as the triple bottom line. Many of us are familiar with what we call the bottom line, talking about profitability, talking about financial bottom lines, how much money are we making, how valuable are we to our shareholders, things like that. But the triple bottom line expands it a little bit, and it's represented by something known as the 3 Ps. It's a way to simplify it a little bit. So you're not just focusing on the profit or the profitability, but you're also paying attention how you run your company, how you run your team or your department, the people. Are you being fair with the people who you work for? Are you taking care of the planet? Let's just say you're in some remote area and nobody would ever know if you were, say you make blue jeans and the blue dye you use to dye the denim is toxic and you're upriver and there's villages downstream or downriver. And let's just say nobody would ever know if you were dumping that toxic dye in the stream. You'd never get caught. Well, that's what doing the right thing is all about. If you care about the planet, if you care about people, not just within your organization, but outside the organization, you're going to put focus on that too. And you're going to hold very high standards for these things too, not just the profitability. In research, we're not going to dive too deep into this. There's something known as the bottom line mentality. And research has shown that organizations that have a very high bottom line mentality, meaning they're focusing on just one bottom line, typically profitability, there's a high correlation between bottom line mentality and unethical behavior and illegal behavior. So the connections are there. Now, social responsibility, we see it as the manager's duty to take actions that will benefit the interests of society as well as the organization. So it's not just benefiting the organization. And then we define corporate social responsibility as the notion that corporations are expected to go above and beyond following the law and making a profit. It's one of these things that it gets into this thing about can I versus should I. And you might just say, well, we didn't break the law, but we knew what we did was probably wrong. So it's going above and beyond, as this says. Not everybody is on board with CSR. In fact, Nobel Memorial Prize winning economist and statistician Milton Friedman, who's no longer with us, but he had some very, very strong views on government intervention when it comes to businesses. He held very strong beliefs that, less government intervention. Let the market run itself. Don't get involved with regulations. Don't get involved with, restrictive policies from the government perspective. Just let businesses run the way they should run. And so you see a great quote here from Milton Friedman saying, the only corporate social responsibility a company has is to maximize its profits. And to expand that thought a little bit more, that if the company is profitable, that means that people are making a good wage, it's employing people, so they've got, they're making money, they can support their families, they probably have good benefits. And if people's pockets are full, then people might be more inclined to be charitable. But it's not up to the company to do this, it's up to individuals. So listen, just let your social responsibility, if you're an organization, is to be profitable. That's what Milton Friedman would argue. That's what he did argue. So ethics and values. This gets into this whole thing about can I versus should I. Because it's very possible that some things are unethical, but they're not necessarily illegal. So you might just say, hey, I'm not breaking the law. What harm did I do? Sometimes you know whether or not what you're doing is right or wrong. And so we held ourselves in the Army to a very high standard, and it was this notion about can I versus should I. Yeah, you can do it, but should you? Probably not in some cases, right? Sometimes it's okay to do it. And so following the massive scandals that led to a major recession, companies such as Enron and WorldCom, and there are others out there, the U.S. Congress got involved. And so we have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. A lot of accountants will refer to this as SOX, to kind of abbreviate it a little bit. And so it puts very high standards in place. What we found is that these public auditing companies were kind of in on the gig, and so company A had their figures and their records and their their logs, basically their accounting logs, and so they would submit them, and in some cases the public auditing firms would check into it, and they wouldn't dig too deep, and they would bless off on it as well. So now SOX established an independent oversight of public accounting firms. In addition to that, CEOs and CFOs are now required to approve and to certify the financial records that go forward. And so now it totally takes away the CEO or the CFO's ability to say, hey, I didn't know. So when these accountants down there are generating the records, the financial records, now the CFO and the CEO have to certify it, have to approve it, and have to sign it. So they're on the hook as well, and they can't kind of try to weasel out of it saying they didn't know. All right, and then so when it comes to what are some things that companies can do, what are some things that individuals can do, I like this quote from Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in the history of the world. I love this quote here. One, I like this one. He who dies rich dies thus disgraced. And I really like this one too. Wealth is not to feed our egos, but to feed the hungry and to help people help themselves. So although he was making all this money, he felt compelled to use this money not just so he could buy another mansion, not just so he could buy more stuff and wear a fancy watch and have fancy jewelry and fly all around the world. He used it to make sure his businesses were running and profitable, kind of what Milton Friedman was saying, but also to use it for some good, right? And there are other companies out there who are noteworthy for giving back to the community, for being high when it comes to corporate social responsibility, high when it comes to philanthropy. Companies such as Google, Apple are right up there. Microsoft is another one who they give back to the community. All right, well, this is going to wrap up Chapter 3, Spotlight. I'd love to hear your feedback. Hope you all have a great day. Go Nighthawks.